So we are joined tonight by Mark Shuttleworth, and Mark is the founder, basically, of the Ubuntu Linux operating system. Mark, it's great to have you here on Category 5 TV.
Hey, Robbie, how are you?
I'm great. Mark, how about yourself?
I'm loving this technology.
Isn't this great, eh? Oh, we're using Ubuntu, my friend. So Mark's joining us live from California at the Ubuntu Development Summit, and just want to, just ask you a couple of brief questions, Mark, just to kind of get to know you and get to know a little bit about Linux. And you should understand that the purpose of our show is to kind of introduce people to new technologies, including Ubuntu Linux, and we have looked at some other distributions in the past as well. But a lot of our viewers are, either on the fence or maybe don't know a whole lot about Linux. And so as we're asking these questions, we're looking at them kind of from a new user standpoint. And those are kind of, the way that we'd like you to answer. So you're having a good time at the Development Summit down there?
Yeah, we're being very well taken care of by Google. I've got the Google Panda Forest right here behind me.
Great.
We have about 250 people here, which is fantastic. The Bay Area is just such a buzz always to kind of get together, and yeah, just 1,000 different things to talk about for our next release, which would be 904.
Wonderful. And now, just you personally, you've been putting your focus on providing this free Linux operating system, right? Why did you go from, just curious here, and tell me if I can ask this, but why did you go from being a successful entrepreneur to an astronaut of all things, and then to offering a free software product?
Well, I guess for me, my philosophy is that you should always take on the biggest challenge you can find. And back in the early '90s, for me, the idea of building an electronic commerce framework for the internet from Cape Town was just totally awesome. As a student, I really wanted to do that. Mm-hmm. When that worked out really well, I looked around and said, what's the most powerful thing I could do? And the Russians were kind of massively changing their space program. So I said, well, why don't I tootle over to Moscow and see if I can convince them to
and just go to space,
teach me how to be a cosmonaut. And then that worked out.
Yeah.
And then after that, I looked around and I saw this sort of this coming together of free software, of the internet, of services on the internet. And I thought it just might be possible to build something that's kind of as powerful and as slick, as sexy as the Mac, and with economics behind it, which allow us to give it away. So just maybe we'll pull this one off.
Wonderful. And one of the questions that I've received a lot of, Mark, is people wonder, okay, well, if it's free, who pays for Ubuntu, and why do they go about doing it?
I guess the best answer to that is everybody pays, and to a certain extent everyone benefits. So a good example of that is Intel fund a tremendous amount of work on Linux because they ship new hardware every couple of months, and they want to make sure that they can ship an operating system that on the same day reflects what their hardware can do.
Okay.
And so Linux is perfect for that. If they invest in Linux, then when they ship the hardware, they can put Linux on it, and people have software that can take advantage of that hardware immediately. So in a sense, Intel is making Ubuntu better. They do it for Red Flag, they do it for Red Hat, they do it for everybody. But in a sense, they're helping to pay for it. I contribute some. There are lots of different organizations that contribute some, and the net effect is something that then everybody benefits from.
Wonderful.
And the business model around it is really services driven.
I see. So with the parent company Canonical, which you founded, speaking of services, so you provide corporate level support for the Ubuntu desktop Linux?
Sure. If you download Ubuntu and it works for you, then that costs me nothing, and it's delightful to have a sort of a passionate user who might help steer the platform to make it better. But a larger organization may well want a support contract, even though they don't have to license the product. They may still want a support contract. And so our business model is we have to operate in that sort of narrow gap where we can fund the continued development of the platform, offer services to people who want to use it commercially or in an environment where they want support or professional services,
okay.
and then still make it available to everybody from Wall Street to kind of Bangladesh.
Cool. Now, I'm not really looking for a dictionary definition per se, Mark, but what does the word Ubuntu mean to you, and why did you choose to go with the word Ubuntu as the name of your desktop Linux operating system?
It has a very special meaning. It means this sort of the essence of being a person, and particularly the idea that relationships between people are what's really important. And for South Africans, I'm South African, and for South Africans, it kind of represents the triumph of bringing people together to bring their best talents together for everybody's benefit. And so it just seemed like a wonderful word to use for the name of the project.
Very cool. Carrie, are there any questions coming in the chat room at all? People who are wanting to ask anything specific to Mark?
No, but if you do have a question, definitely type it in the chat room. There was one user who said that they wrote a college paper on you, Mark, so that's kind of exciting.
I hope they got a great grade.
Yeah. I have a question. I know you mentioned that it's a free software and people get passionate about it. How can the users become part of the Ubuntu community? I know that you have a team of developers. That's right, you're at the developers conference. How can users get involved in that?
Well, so we have people from all over the world who help produce Ubuntu, and they participate at almost every level. So we have guys who show up and they want to make it sort of run faster on their hardware, and we also have guys who show up and want to make sure that there are basic introductory documents that explain how to use it in sort of Tamil Hindi, so that people from their community can learn it and understand it. And if you go to ubuntu.com, there are a bunch of links around the community and around participation in the community. Those are a great place to start. Depending on what people's interests are, we can almost always accommodate and embrace new talent and new ideas. We have guys who work on advocacy, on marketing, people who help produce the software itself. There's just a huge range of ways to participate. I think if you put your arms around the whole community, you'd have some tens of thousands of people in your embrace, yeah, it's huge. It's really quite incredible.
Very good. Now, just backing up just a little bit, Mark, just thinking of those users who don't necessarily know what Ubuntu is or even what Linux is, how does Ubuntu kind of stand apart or stand, what makes it different from other Linux distributions or other operating systems?
Well, I guess the first thing to say is that the fact that there are multiple Linux operating systems is one of the wonderful things, right, of free software. And each of those different systems has things to recommend it. So if one has time, it's worth checking out a couple of them rather than just one. The things we strive for in Ubuntu are ease of use, making it really easy for any user to get it installed, to have access to the low-hanging fruit, an easy on-ramp to the web, easy access to web browsers, email,
right,
basic Office applications, and so on. So we also strive to make it robust and secure and reliable for power users. But fundamentally, the focus is Linux for human beings, right?
Right. And speaking of just kind of the focus of how you program the software, you've got the server operating system, you've got the desktop operating system, and you had also put a lot of work in with Intrepid with making it work on portable laptops and things like that. Very small laptops like the EPC. Are you keeping on with that direction of having kind of three bases for Ubuntu?
Yeah, at least that many. And what I'd also like to have
wow,
is a sort of small handheld device version as well, because it seems to me that we're moving to a world where your data, your experience of technology is increasingly out there in the cloud. And you want to be able to access that, from a device in your pocket or from a laptop or from your desktop at home, and have access to the same data used in the same way. So if we're able to provide people with that common platform in future, that will be a wonderful thing.
Yeah, how awesome.